everyone. Just give me a minute to share my screen. Is my screen already seen, guys? Can you please, Nina, can you please confirm for me?
Yes, ma'am. You can see your screen.
Thank you very much, Nina. So, once again, maayong hapon, mga higala, or just like how us from Sacred Heart School-Ateneo de Cebu would greet everyone, Magus afternoon. I am Janvarica Acop. As what Nina shared a while ago, I am from Cebu and I teach contemporary issues to junior high school students. I would like to thank you all, dear formators, for joining me in this friendly conversation about our learning practices from the past pandemic school year. And I would also like to thank SALT for this opportunity to share the small wins that we've had in our own classrooms. I've always had the mindset of a lifelong learner, and I think that mindset has been very helpful from the past pandemics, from the past school year. But just for the context of our sharing this afternoon, let us be guided as well with the idea which we can really observe in the community pantry. Magbigay ayon sa kakayahan at kumuha batay sa ating pangangailangan. You are all free to beg, borrow, and steal what works for you. More than that, dear formators, please also share your own practices by using the chat box. If in case I appear to be going too fast or too slow in my sharing, you may use the Zoom cues or the Zoom reactions to give me non-verbal cues in our sharing. If everyone is all set from their own homes and devices, can you please click the like or the heart Zoom reaction so that we may get the ball rolling? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. So, my sharing this afternoon is entitled Capstone Gallery, Learning and Feedbacking with My Classmates. And let me begin with this idea that I have this belief that my subject should be a very safe space, should be a safe space for my students to share their opinions and develop a culture of openness and respect in this VUCA world. But the online setup where mics are muted and intermittent connectivity forces our students to turn off cameras has made simple tasks like conversations very difficult to achieve in day-to-day setting. As teachers are challenged to prioritize the essentials in the curriculum, students also appear to settle by just finishing what is only graded in each subject. As independent learning is streamlined as well here in the online setup, working with peers in group tasks has been a major difficulty for our students as well. With that, with these struggles, I wanted to change my class atmosphere by using the most effective tool that I have over my students, and that would be grades. So, how did I use this concept of grades? I designed then classroom activities or assessments that is not only there to measure students' learning competency, but also to establish positive online norms. And one of the strategies that I have integrated in this school year from the past school year was peer feedback through a channel known as Capstone Gallery. So the Gallery channel is as a digital platform for students to post their performance tasks, or how we call it, capstone requirements, and exchange feedback with their peers on the posted class works. So I only created this channel during our second trimester when I realized, while checking the outputs of my class of my students from the first term, they have exerted a lot of effort in their work, and I feel like they deserve more audience, a bigger audience than myself to appreciate their work. And that's when I thought that this is a very good opportunity for me to change our classroom setup where they can have more peer engagement. So in the Capstone Gallery channel, students were instructed to submit their outputs by posting their work in the said platform. I have provided here specific instructions on what are the things expected from them when they post. One thing also to take note is that it's not all the classworks that is submitted here that was submitted in the Capstone Gallery. It's reserved for major performance tasks, which was really given a lot of time for the students to prepare. At the end of the day, in our learning management system, we still use the assignment tab as the platform to post or to give classworks or courseworks to our students. So, what is something highlighted here in the Capstone Gallery is that the audience of the classworks posted has been extended not only to the teacher but even to the whole class itself. So here I get to say that it's safe because it's just within my class. There are others who might think, should I post it in social media so that I can say that my students were well appreciated, or should I post it in other public channels? It was also difficult for me to discern. So I realized that I think I can just settle with something that all of us share in our learning management system. And I think the class could be the best audience to appreciate their classmates' works. Before I proceed into other details of the Capstone Gallery, let's talk about peer feedback. As we all know, feedback is recognized as a very important component of learning because it promotes self reflection. It also allows us to track our students' progress, and it also really it helps students increase their retention on their knowledge or the different learning competencies, and really to construct to be able to have discussions with instructors or teachers or maybe with their peers on how to improve their work. But let me highlight on peer feedback. A lot of researchers have already recognized that peer feedback shifts the idea or shifts feedback from a monologue process to one that recognizes the student's role, where they construct their own meaning as they evaluate and analyze their feedback. So here, students are not just passive learners who absorb the feedback right away, but here they are engaged in active learning. One thing also, guys, that I think was something that I did before is that in the caps, I used to post before best works, but I think it was really better that everyone would see how everybody did in their tasks, especially in performance tasks, because these kind of activities really has a bigger weight in our grading system. So you could really see how students also exert more effort in these tasks. And so that's why it's really deserving of a bigger audience than just the teacher. So in our practice of the peer feedback through the Capstone Gallery, students were given an asynchronous period to explore all the outputs posted in the gallery. So peer feedback was given as one of the as was given as the activity of the period for a formative assessment. So before I also gave the activity to my students, I was also thinking or asking myself, what kind of feedback do I expect my students to give? So I was doing some search in the internet, and these were very helpful questions that I was able to find that helped me frame our activity. So first, does the student understand the task? How is the student's understanding of the task similar to his or her peers? How are the peers also working together to give feedback? And what kind of feedback are they providing? Does the feedback relate to the assignment or to the learning outcomes? And how can I best communicate assignment or learning outcomes to ensure strong peer feedback? So from these questions, I used a very simple method to guide my students and how to share their feedback. And that was by asking them to give three things that they had learned from the output of their classmate based on a topic, two things that they can find interesting or what they'd like to learn about from their students' work, from their classmates' work, and one question or suggestion that they can offer to their peer or to their classmate to improve their work. So if you can notice in this kind of framework or in this kind of setup, what is it's not only checking on the learning outcomes that's highlighted, but also peer engagement. So let's try to look at some of the works posted in our gallery. So this was one of our activities in the gallery, where about human rights. um, Here, students were making differentiated activities in groups. And what you could see here specifically is a group that created an infographic on the rights of the accused. If you also notice, they created an infographic in English and also in Filipino languages. So one of the things that I really appreciated in the activity were the captions or the captions of provided by my students, because here I get to see beyond the output and understand more of the context of my students by understanding why did it look like this, or how were they able to come up with it, what was their inspiration about it, and it gives us a story, which I think is more meaningful than just simply checking on the work right away or on the infographic right away. Other than that, you can notice that there are also reactions on the upper right of the screen, which actually shows how other students are really showing appreciation as well to their classmates' works. So now let's try to go to the highlight, which is on the feedback received by this group from their classmates. So these were the different feedback that they got. So um, context is that students were assigned to different works for them to give their feedback. So it's really, in a way, structured. So as a teacher, from the feedback given, I can see here that the students who were giving feedback were able to really think and connect based on my target competencies by really sharing what they learned based on the infographic. Other than that, they were also able to give objective means of appreciating the works of their classmates. If you can notice here, they were highlighting some of its good features. Like it was simple, but in a good way, because there were elements of the country, it was not disturbing. And they were also able to appreciate that the infographic was delivered into languages. So I think that's a very good way of providing a feedback, but this time it was given by students. On the context of asking for suggestions, only very few gave. Like honestly, only very few provided some things to improve. But in a way, it was still helpful because the students or the groups were actually given a chance to change their work or to improve their work based on the feedback given by their classmates. So that's why it's only the peer feedback was a formative assessment. So what I had more were instead of suggestions, were in fact questions about the topic. And I think it was very helpful because I used the questions raised by the students to frame or to structure my synchronous session, wherein I can really specify what topics do they want to know more by using these questions, and even required the groups assigned on the topics to answer the questions during our sync meeting. So it was really beneficial for me and also for my students as well. So this was not only true to the case of that output only, but it was also observed in other outputs made or created by other groups. And I think here we can really see that there was an active engagement or peer engagement among students even during an asynchronous period. So other than that, there were also really groups, even though I did not instruct them, who really appreciated the comments given by their classmates as well. So even though it's really far from the face-to-face setup of conversation, this is, I think, one way to make things closer in terms of communication or speak or talking with peers in a way that also does not compromise the learning competencies. So To end this sharing, let me give you some of my main takeaways from these activity. In the online setup, we have to maximize our class activities, not just to make thinking, but also feelings visible. And I would like to highlight the feelings of encouragement, the feelings of appreciation. Right now, we only have reactions, and reactions like Zoom or in our learning management system, we have these like emojis. They are helpful, but they do not really sum up how people feel about their peers. So I think as teachers, we have to use our activities for it, because our students are feeling isolated. So even though this might be very simple, I think this can nudge them and tell them that you're doing good, you're doing okay. Other than that, it's also to encourage the feeling of collaboration. Here, they do not just see their classmates as competitors, as if getting a higher grade is way better, but instead they see them as partners, people who can actually help them improve their work because of the feedback that they have provided. Um, Second takeaway is that students can also be effective teachers. And I think the Capstone channel was really able to highlight that, since, as what you noticed, we were learning about the Philippine Bill of Rights, but I was only present during the sync session for that specific topic. Asynchronously, they were all learning on their own based on the outputs that they have created. And the feedback given really shows what are they learning about it. And I felt happy because I was able to share it with my students, the idea of learning not just with me alone, but now with their classmates. And my last takeaway is that it does not hurt to slow down. I would say that I can relate to the feeling of being pressured or catching up to finish a certain topic coverage or a certain let's say deadline because of the online setup. But I think the last school year really made me realize that more than ever we have to provide protected time for our students to reflect or even to converse, since we need this more to make us feel human, even though we are using different technologies in the pandemic setup. So I hope in a way or two, I was able to give you a share of my experience from the previous school year. And hopefully you also get to feel that you were not alone in this feeling of struggle. But what is beautiful is that we always get to find means to thrive. And I think this is what the exchange is about. So let me end by sharing that, or giving you this statement, that in our path as formators, it's really filled with uncertainties, especially with the pandemic. But let us continue to find God in all these things as we accompany the youth for a hopeful future. Dagang salamat, everybody. Always Magus, always Lux Orient, always Ad Maiorem Dei Gloria. Let me give a floor this time to Nina.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Miss Acop. So we will now be opening up the floor for a question and answer. So kindly type in your questions in the chat box below, or also feel free to unmute. Okay, so any questions? If you don't have questions right now, you can also later on share your thoughts, questions, or insights from the session at jvseal.online/share. So I will be sending that in the chat. Okay, so I guess if we don't have any more questions, thank you so much again, Ms. Akal, and all the participants who joined us for this session. So again, we invite everyone to share your thoughts, questions, or insights from this session at jvseal.online/share. So we will see everyone again next Wednesday for the last day of ABL Learning Exchange. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you, and